If you're passionate about making a difference in the lives of students and playing a vital role in the education system, being a school social worker might just be the path for you, and I'm here to share with you the steps you need to take to get there. Welcome to By Kia Bell. I'm Kia, and I'm a licensed social worker at the master's level and a licensed school social worker, here to share with you everything social work. Before we get into the steps, let's talk about what social work even looks like and its role. I like to define it as helping to remove the barriers to a student's academic success. How this gets done varies by the needs of the student, the needs of the school, and what the school really allows you to do. I mention that because I was at a school my first year where they were very restrictive on what I was allowed to do with students. And then a year later, I transferred over to a different school and they were very flexible. They said, "You're the professional, so we trust in you that you know the legalities of your job and how to best do your job." So I was able to do a lot that at this school that I'm still currently at. Some of the things that are part of my school day would be working with students individually, whether that be counseling, or I would also be working with students in groups. Sometimes I go into the classroom and do a lesson with the whole class. Sometimes I work with families. Maybe we do a meeting together because they need resources or they need some support in getting their student to be motivated, or maybe there's a behavior problem at home and at school. I work with the staff members if they're having troubles with a certain student. There are so many things that are involved in our jobs. We're basically the hats of all trade because we're kind of all over the place putting out fires. And even myself personally, I love to do like after school events and getting kids, at dances or chaperoning or doing clubs. Like, I just love this position because of the wide range of things you can do. So if you're still interested and it sounds like a position or a career path that you are definitely wanting to get involved in, let's get into the steps. I'm going to break it down into 4 steps, starting with step number 1, education, of course. Sometimes throughout this video, you'll hear me say this varies by your states and your district. Unfortunately, when you pass state lines or district lines, they do things very differently in the education world. Really do your research on your district that you're interested in working at. So back into it, education. Typically, you do need your Master's of Social Work degree. This varies because I have heard of social workers who have gotten their position as a bachelor's level. Just be aware that there are limitations to what you can do at a bachelor's level compared to a master's level legally. And I also always just tell them, if there's 2 applicants that they're looking at, one has a bachelor's, one has a master's, who do you think they're going to go with? Probably the master's degree person. I also don't want you to go into, student debt just because of this. So you can always still try and see what their requirements are in your district or state. Another thing, if you have not yet gotten your master's in social work degree yet, something you want to make sure to look into is if the school you're interested in or going to attend is accredited by the Council of Social Work Education, or CSWE. If it is not, then your degree is most likely not usable, as you won't be able to get licensed. So definitely do some research on any programs that you're interested in. Step number 2 is to get practical experience. What I mean by practical experience is particularly working with the youth population or adolescents or children, depending on what age group you would like to work with, elementary or secondary. I say this because before you, go to school, get licensed, start applying for jobs, the last thing we'd want is you to get into this position and realize, I don't even want to work with kids, and now you're kind of trying to find another position or career path. Another reason I say that is because applicants will look at your resume, and one major thing they're going to look at is if you've worked with this population before. Parents are literally dropping their kids off every day to this school, and it is very important that they're doing their due diligence to make sure that the professionals that are working with these kids are able and capable to do so and know how to. So really get that experience working with kids, whether it be through substitute teaching, working at a daycare, a preschool, the YMCA, maybe at your practicum, a family resource center, something, anything that just says, I've worked with this population, looks really good on a resume. So really get that experience, maybe while you're in your master's program, or maybe right after your master's program while you're waiting to get licensed. Step number 3 is getting licensed. We're getting there. 1 to 2 ways to get licensed, right? So the first way, which is definitely usually a requirement, is getting licensed by your state board. Getting licensed by your state board does require you to take the ASWB, or Association of Social Work Board Test exam. It's a toughie, but getting a license is really helpful when looking for jobs. I'm not going to say that is always required when you go for a school social work position, because when I first started out, my first school social work job was actually through a contract and I was not required to be licensed, but I was required to have the degree, of course. I later got licensed during my first year under that contract. Now, the job that I have now, they would only hire somebody who was a licensed social worker. So that's something to look into within your school district that you're interested in. Now, if you have your license in social work, great. You can also look into getting your license to be a school social worker in particular. Mine is through the Department of Education. Not all states have this. I got mine in Nevada, but then when I moved to Texas, I found out that the TEA just does not do school social work licenses. So that was really interesting to me. And I have heard from other social workers that work in schools that they also do not have one in their state. So definitely something to look forward to. I remember when I started at my next school, they were really impressed with the fact that I had that school social work license on my resume. And I do think that that was a deciding factor for me. Step number 4 is to start applying to those jobs. So this is the part where it gets a little tricky, because this also looks different by the state and district. I started to apply in Nevada, and they had just started this initiative and this huge grant to put social workers in the schools because it was not a thing before. And I was part of that group that got hired that way. I remember that this one person interviewed all the social workers, and then you would just get placed at a school because it was part of this grant, right? But after several years, or I don't even know how many years they were into it, but after a certain amount of years, the grant kind of started to go away. And now that social workers were in the schools and we got the teachers and the schools buy-in that, like, okay, it's really great to have social workers in the school. Now the schools are responsible for funding those social workers. And so now the process is different. You apply at the school that has that posting available or position available, and then you interview with them. Now, even when I moved to Texas, they have independent school districts here within the cities, which was definitely different from what I'm used to in Vegas. We had one school district. So I had to do several different applications within all these different school districts. And then if they, I guess if they approved you or you got hired, then they would place you into the school. So I guess it's a little similar, but oh my gosh. And when I was applying to Texas, it was crazy how many applications I had to do, and they were so long. So hopefully that's not the case for you, but I do see some, I guess, like good things about that route too, of having those little school districts. I'm definitely going to do a video on acing your school social work interview. I have been on both sides of the coin. So I've obviously interviewed at 2 different schools and I got the position up for both. And then at my second school, we hired on more social workers, and I was involved in that hiring process as far as interviewing and looking at resumes. So I also know what they're looking for, what questions they may ask, and how to best approach those interviews. So be on the lookout for that. But overall, I hope that you found this helpful. If you have any questions, then definitely comment below and I'll be sure to get to them soon. Thank you so much for watching.